Welcome back to the DevOps Lab. I'm April Edwards, and I have a super awesome guest with me, Christopher Maneu. And we're going to be talking about NubesGen in this new series, so stay tuned. Welcome to the DevOps Lab. I'm April Edwards, a senior cloud developer advocate here at Microsoft. And today we're going to kick off a series, and I have a super special guest with me, Christopher Maneu. Christopher, welcome.
Thank you, April.
Really excited to have you here. So today we're going to talk about infrastructure as code with NubesGen. So if you could kick it off, tell us about NubesGen, because I'm super excited about this technology and what it can do. And I'm really excited to share it with the community.
Yeah, so NubesGen started as an open source project, and the idea behind it is we all know when we are doing DevOps that infrastructure as code is the way to go compared to click in the portal and doing things manually. But the fact is you need to learn a lot of things, and there is also a lot of subtleties to do it right when you're trying to deploy things on Azure. So the idea of NubesGen is to help you generate Terraform templates and in a few days, Bicep templates as well, with perfectly crafted templates that you can build upon to deploy your infrastructure and apps on Azure.
And that's awesome, because all the time people ask me, how do I get started with infrastructure as code? So I'm really excited about NubesGen. You and I have talked about it as it's kind of like grown into this really organic system. So go ahead, kick us off into NubesGen, because I think so many people are going to be excited to see what it can do and help them get started with infrastructure as code, especially with Terraform and Bicep.
Yeah, sure. What we can do is to head over to the NubesGen website. As you can see, and there is a short introduction, but the meat of the product is here with this assistant. And basically, you will type your project name, like Scuba Spotter, which is a little app I'm creating right now. You pick a region, an Azure region, and then you are asked to do very simple choices. Instead of the huge amount of choices you can do in Azure for hosting your application and workloads, here we have simplified the experience. So for now, we just have web apps and serverless apps. That's it. You will pick your framework of choices, and depending on that, we will do a lot of the optimization and configuration changes on all the other services to optimize depending on your dev stack. So I'm mostly a .NET dev. And I will choose a few things, maybe add a database on top of that and some options. And then I can simply download the zip file containing all the Terraform or Bicep code to deploy this infrastructure. And I can even, by adding GitOps, doing it with absolutely no code directly into my GitHub and having the CI/CD pipeline already built for me.
That's really cool. And so many people struggle with like that starting point, right? Like, how do we do CI/CD? Do we go to GitHub Actions? How do we create a pipeline? So having that ready out of the box with a few clicks is super cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So tell me, like, we've get started, we've downloaded a template, like what's next? What else can we do with NubesGen? Is there anything else we need to know about? Any kind of maybe best practices we want to kind of start out of the box with? Because I think a lot of the times when we get started, we're trying to get started on a project. Maybe there's some best practices or some tips and tricks you can kind of help us out with.
Yeah, you're right. I'm helping startups and also customer who've been on Azure for a few years. And what we saw is people starting with Azure, they kind of like start with what they think is the best, and down the road, 1 or 2 years after, they realize some mistakes they've made. And one of them is about defining the naming conventions. Mm-hmm. So if you look at my Azure portal and a bunch of my subscriptions, you can see some resources with a name that is absolutely not descriptive. I don't know what this 190.042 bot is actually doing. And when you're an admin or DevOps working on a huge description with a lot of resources, it's like going into the ocean and not really understanding what you're looking at. So one of the
absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the things you can do early on is to define the naming conventions. And we even have some documentation up on the Azure Architecture Center to help you defining a naming convention, helping you to quickly identify the resource type or the environment. Is it a prod resource or development resource or test resource? But it's kind of complicated to do it first. You need to understand what you will be doing, what are the limits, etc. There's a lot of things to take into consideration to come up with your own naming conventions. So one of the things we've done within NubesGen is we have defined a basic naming convention that will help you get started directly. So the fact is, when here you are selecting a project name, and when you're using GitHub to deploy your infrastructure as code with NubesGen, we automatically detect the environment. Is it dev or prod environment? And we craft the name of all the resources, so you will be able to understand them and to see easily what you're doing. And if we take a look at the code that is generated by NubesGen, or what you can do when you get started, here is a very simple Bicep template to create a storage account. And this is the sample we have on the Azure Quick Starts. So as you can see, one of the parameters is simply the storage account name, which means that when you are doing the AZ command, for example, to execute the script to deploy this Bicep, it's up to you to craft the name. And we have a lot of difficulties to automate that. One thing you can do, instead of having this default name, like this storage account name as a parameter, is to only expose to the outer world of this infrastructure as code template the components of your naming convention. So here I have another template, which is a simple one generated by NubesGen, where instead of directly asking for the name of the resource, we ask for the application name, the environment, and the instance number. And within the template itself, we will automatically assemble all of this information into the name of the actual resource, while ensuring that you adhere to the Azure limitation. So for example, storage account name cannot be above 24 letters. That's a limitation of the system. And that's kind of things we are doing within NubesGen, which means that very simply, you can get started doing infrastructure as code with NubesGen, and you already have a naming convention in place, and you are free to obviously change things because it's an open source project, and you have like all the infrastructure as code downloaded in your project, so you can tweak it later on when you gain some maturity and some knowledge about Azure.
I love that, because I have written Terraform scripts in the past, and especially on storage accounts, where I'm either working with a customer or deploying something to Azure. We've got it in a template, great. We put in Terraform or even Bicep, we deploy it, and we get a failure in deployment of our code because our naming convention's wrong. I love that you guys have put that into NubesGen, because storage accounts are different than virtual machines, and like a Linux VM and a Windows VM have different naming convention lengths and character, limitations. So that is really, really cool. That's awesome to see. And naming conventions are so important with customers because they tend to grow kind of exponentially sometimes in Azure, and they don't have control over what things are, who owns something. And then you don't know, like, is it this app? Or if a developer puts in like, this is app 1 and this one puts in app 2, well, what are they, right? So that's really, really important. And I think that plays in so well with developer best practices. So that's really cool to see.
Yeah, and if you want to have a look at my screen, you can see a more complex architecture created by NubesGen when we have a database, etc. And the actual name of the application is Secure Scuba Secret 02. Okay. And when you can see within the resources, as for example, we hit the limit, but just with one character. If we had one more character, we would not be able to generate the storage account name. And for example, the storage accounts have also another naming limitation, which is no hyphen in the name. And this is also something that is taken care of by the Terraform template we generate. So even if I have an hyphen within the name, because for example, on my website, which is here, app-secure scuba secret 02, it's more readable for my end address, my HTTP address. The name of the storage account gets generated accordingly to the limitation of Azure and the naming convention we've implemented.
That's so cool. And I think that's going to help so many people get started and help them like avoid those pitfalls when we're doing stuff. And I think it's so great that the team has put together those developer best practices and those hiccups and pitfalls that catch us all out, right, when we're doing infrastructure code. I am so excited to see more with NubesGen and what it's going to do. And I think we have more episodes coming up. So I'm going to tell everyone to stay tuned. We're going to have Christopher back, and we're going to go over some more topics and do a deeper dive into NubesGen. So thank you, Christopher. And I'm excited to see what else NubesGen can do.
Thank you, and see you in our next episode.